Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC, a proud member of the Beautiful Game Network. I'm your host, Phil Bakke. I'm joined tonight by Christian Canales. Christian, what's up, man?
Here we are, man. Are we going to call this season 3, episode 1 or episode 2? I don't know if the last one we did was like episode 0. What do you guys think? I don't know where we are.
I think it's technically episode 2.
Okay.
Of season 3, but I mean, you know, however you want to draw the lines, I think it's 61 overall or something like that, not counting the interviews. So, yeah,
It needs to find like a well-known sitcom or like just TV show to like compare to, like which show had the greatest season 3, and that's going to be kind of our theme for the year.
Yeah. I like it. We're also joined by Mikka Burrell. Mikka, how you doing?
Doing well, Phil. I have my notes as episode 61, which, I mean, however you slice it up, it's crazy that we're season 3. Like, we're here.
Yeah.
Cannot believe how far we've come, like, as a club, as a podcast, like, as fans. It's crazy. So maybe third time's a charm for, you know, reaching the final and winning it. We'll see. A
lot has happened. But one thing that hasn't changed is Christian is staying curious this season, and we're going to open it up with Christian's question as tradition demands.
Yeah, we are planning some parties in the near future, some small gatherings, baby showers and whatnot. And so with that comes, menu decisions. So I'm just wondering, between the two of you, the traditional question, chicken or fish, where do you guys lean towards?
Okay.
If that's all the information you get a wedding invitation or whatever, you have the option of checking off chicken or fish. You don't know if it's going to be fried chicken, grilled chicken, salmon, catfish. You have no clue.
I mean, go for it, Phil.
It's tough. So I would say I err on the side of chicken, but there's one dish out there that could be lurking, and that is chicken marsala. And that is the risk that you run. Like,
so not a fan.
No. Especially, I would say well done chicken marsala, like, at like a nice restaurant or something could be good. But wedding venue or party venue chicken marsala is just doo-doo. Terrible.
Well, I was thinking of this question in terms of like what your guests would probably prefer, and I feel like people have such strong opinions on fish that I'd probably go chicken if I'm the planner of the event. But me personally, like I could do either. I like both.
Okay, that's fair. I'm kind of with Phil, where I would usually err on the side of chicken, because I feel like the worst chicken is better than like the worst fish.
Sure,
I think
that's fair.
So
the floor of fish is so low, like
for sure.
I would say though, like, and I guess it's the benefit of being in a couple is normally you just double up and get one of each, and then then you can kind of ride it out that way. But hopefully the appetizers like make up for whatever is going on in the main meal anyways.
I'm sure if we ask the players, if we ask the Locomotive players, they'd say either, because it's just protein. That's all it is to them.
Strictly fuel. No, that's, I don't know. Cash bar. Anyways,
That's the crucial. Yeah.
Yeah. Me and Erica watched the other guys the other night. For those who
Classic.
know that reference, Samuel L. Jackson. Anyways, we do have Locomotive to talk about. We've got Locomotive stuff to talk about. We haven't talked in a while about what's most important in American soccer, and that is Locos put out 2 more kits for a full complement of 3 Adidas kits, and despite our screaming into the void, not a lot of yellow on show. 3 extremely blue kits for the Locos.
Yeah, I saw somebody say in like on USL Twitter, someone not a Locos fan, just say like, "What are they gonna wear when the other team wears blue?" And it's a fair question. I'm assuming that they're gonna like mix and match with the shorts,
Sure,
maybe to differentiate from any blue or dark side we might face. But yeah, would have liked to see more yellow. But.
Eiffel 65 FC.
Yeah, I just like I like each design like by itself. When they took the pictures of all 3 of them together, I was just like, come on, guys. Like it's so samey, it's tough.
Yeah. And I mean like the light blue one, I actually really like that design, but if those like lines, those diagonals or whatever they are, had been like yellow with like a dark blue, I don't know. Very samey as you said.
But it hasn't been all bad though.
No.
As far as drip goes.
It hasn't, and that was the good news is, and we kind of had some breaking news, I guess. When was that? Saturday at the 10 a.m. news drop. We were able to break, and then the club confirmed later on that they are offering jersey customization now, and it's interesting because it's like there's upsides and downsides to the way they're doing customization. It's not the official like USL lettering or anything like that. They're doing their own, but as a result, you can customize any official Locos kit, and they still have like the inaugural season stuff on sale. So in theory, you could go back and do a throwback Locos kit to a player who, you know, may have departed or whatever, and do a little tribute. So there's positives and negatives, but I think overall a positive that the club has taken this step.
That was a question I had. I didn't see anywhere confirmed, but so they are doing it on like the older kits too?
I think they had answered a question from a fan who had asked about it, and they said, "Yeah, we'll be able to print on any shirt, but
it is white lettering, though. If I
believe so, yeah.
So that.
So I mean, like whoever gets the like Salgado number 9 Noche de Locos, like flames. But I think it's a good development overall. Obviously, we're limited in the fact that we don't have the official, I guess, lettering, but it's better than nothing, you know.
It is, yeah.
And I mean, it's, you know, $30 isn't cheap, but it's not like horrendous either. So I think for some who have just been dying for the customization, i.e. Phil, it's a welcome development.
Is there like all teams in USL use the same font for their?
They do, yeah.
Oh, I never noticed that. They're
like, it's Premier League vibes where they make them all use the same lettering and fonts and for names and numbers.
I did not know that.
But yeah, so you can customize it. I'd say the price is probably a little steep, but you know, I'm trying not to look a gift horse in the mouth here. The other big piece of news, we obviously have had the roster, you know, more and more solidified over time. It's looking more and more complete, but we did have an out over the beginning of this week, I guess, or end of the weekend, in which Distel Zola moved on loan to Charlotte Independence, obviously in the Eastern Conference. It is a loan deal, confirmed, so he is just on loan for the season. But a, you know, pretty physical presence in our midfield moved out. Surprising move for you guys, or how do you feel about this one with Distel moving on to another team?
Not surprising in the sense that, I mean, doing what we do, we get to be privy to some things like that, and it was put to us, early in preseason that he may or may not stay, whether that is permanently or on loan. So not surprising in that sense. Speaking of sources, it was put to us that it just came down to the midfield being stacked, and that he didn't quite fit the mold in terms of play style that Mark would have liked. And so, I think it was actually a good decision on the club's part to make sure that he gets playing time somewhere, even if it's not here. So, I guess not too surprising. And in a way, I do feel a little bit bad for Distel because I don't think he really got to show, everything that he's capable of last season, and kind of the truncated COVID season that we had. So he's always been very professional. His family are adorable. I wish him the best, obviously, in Charlotte. This move, I think his game, as we saw last season, I think there's elements to his game which fit our style really well. But overall, I think his mobility ultimately was probably his downfall in that our midfield is asked to cover a lot of ground. And big guy, he can obviously kind of spread himself a little bit, just in terms of, he's making up quite a bit just in the strides he's taking. But with the, what we were asking of guys like Nick and Chapa and later on in the season, Brahim, in terms of the ground that they're asked to cover, I just think that they were better suited to the task than Distel. But Distel, obviously, a big part of Locomotive's history, scoring that winning penalty against New Mexico United to send us to the Western Conference Finals. That was quite the moment, and something that will live long in the memory of Locomotive fans. So Distel, always once a loco, always a loco. I think for Distel.
Yeah, for sure. And I just when you bring up. You're just saying the names of the midfielders, Nick, Chapa, Brahim. It just makes sense. I think it just makes me realize that Mark's kind of vision, especially bringing in people like Jose and Diego, they don't physically look like Distel. They are all in a mold, and clearly that's just not what he was going for. And I think last year it was what he was looking for. I think we did have some bigger bodies in there, but now for whatever reason, he's looking to go for, short and speedy.
Yeah. It seems like they have sized down a little bit in that sense, but it'll be interesting to see how it shapes up. Obviously, I think we were all expecting him to have a little bit more impact in terms of starting games and all of that. And obviously, once Brahim was moved into midfield, the opportunities became kind of less and less for others to get in there. And Distel was more of an impact player off the bench, which he did, a commendable job at as well. And I honestly think in a specific system, Distel could make a huge difference for a USL team. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on in Charlotte, because I think, I still think for this level, he's an extremely high quality midfielder.
Yeah. And like you said, if it depends on the system. I think if he's asked to play a deeper holding role where it's not about covering the space the fullbacks leave when they bomb on, like they do in our system, then it might suit him a bit better. I think anyone can use that size for sure. So best of luck to him for sure.
Well, guys, we've got the season coming up. We're 10 days away as of recording this. By the time you're listening to it, we're a mere 9 out from that season opener at Southwest University Park against New Mexico United. We've got other teams are starting in the meantime. So it's a little bit of a strange one because we're not starting at the same time. It's not a big opening weekend or anything like that. But might be worth looking at now. A little bit of a preview, kind of going down. We've looked at our roster, in the first episode of the season. We've looked at who we've brought in and some of the notable names. Obviously, we've spoken to those notable names. If you haven't listened to those episodes, the Getting Loco episodes, then definitely check those out to learn a little bit more about our new folks. But I think it's worth talking about some of our opponents for this season, primarily in the division, but also some of our notable opponents throughout the season, and just taking a look at what they look like now, what's changed. Obviously, a little bit of a weird offseason just in terms of how teams were able to transfer players and maybe not make as many impact, like big signings as they normally would have, especially internationally. So anyways, a little bit of an interesting one, but New Mexico United, the first opponent, and I think suitably the first team that we talk about, just running down some of the outs basically for each of these teams. We'll talk some of the outs, the ins, and then we'll kind of go around and we'll just talk about what to watch for with these teams. So notable outs for New Mexico United, some familiar names. Cody Mizell moving on to NYCFC. Chris Wehan went back to Orange County FC, so elsewhere in the Western Conference. Romeo Parks returned to Sligo Rovers. And then David Najem and Salih Muhammad both out at New Mexico United, with the big ins being Ilya Illich, who joins from Indy 11, Brian Brown, who broke the internet when he signed for New Mexico United.
I was going to say internet breaker.
And then lesser known players primarily for New Mexico United, including Sergio Rivas, who joins from Reno. But a little bit of a weird offseason for New Mexico in that they didn't go get like some big like clout player. They kind of tried to build with pieces rather than go out and get some big name.
Yeah, well, that's what the underdogs do, Phil.
I mean, talking of their rivals, I think Brian Brown probably is that big piece, if you will. I mean, they certainly seem to think so, being that he broke the internet. But I mean, in all seriousness, Brian returns from FK Partizani in the Albanian league. Actually, it appears that he played some UEFA Champions League and Europa League qualifiers, so that's good experience. But of course, he's well known to USL. I mean, 28 goals, 17 assists in 70 appearances in all competitions for Reno. 1868, rest in peace, pulling out. So, I mean, he's got USL pedigree, and I think it's actually a smart move, if not as flashy as maybe they thought it was. But yeah, Chris Wehan is a big loss, and I think they're thinking Brian Brown will be the one to kind of replace a lot of that goal and assist production for them. Cody Mizell is a weird one, though, because he's been a staple there for the past 2 seasons. So, a very interesting season ahead, I think, for New Mexico United.
One of their notable ins, I should say, was Alex Tambakis, who joined from North Carolina FC, the goalkeeper, to replace Mizell. So he is the one player that I think, at least at USL HQ, they're pretty high on that maybe they can fawn over again over in New Mexico.
I mean, let's see if he's as much of a shit house as Cody was, though. I think someone's got a long way to go to be Mizell's level in that way.
Damn near impossible.
Christian, what's your take on New Mexico? How are you feeling about this edition of New Mexico United?
Well, if obviously preseason only holds such weight, but if memory serves correctly, they've had kind of an up and down, where they've had some good performances and then some surprising ones. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that they did lose a lot of big pieces, and I think hard for any team to come back from, or at least right away, I should say. But the benefit is that it has been quite a long preseason. Benefit, I would say, has been quite a long preseason. So they did have a good amount of time to gel together, and I think that as always they have as good a chance as any to surprise by doing extremely well, or to
Yeah, I think the concern, if I'm looking at this from like a New Mexico perspective, is Illich, who they brought in from Indy 11, an attacker. He hasn't scored since September 15th of 2019 against Bethlehem Steel, which is now Philadelphia Union 2. But the bottom line is that they didn't go out and find a bunch of goals when you're thinking about it just as like a, simple addition and subtraction. Weehan obviously had one of his best seasons in his career last year. And replacing that with maybe not the most prolific goal scorers is going to be tough. And I think ultimately they are putting a lot on Brian Brown to be kind of like Kevon Frater 2.0. So yeah, it'll be really interesting. I think this edition of New Mexico United is actually going to try to be more Locomotive than New Mexico United, if that makes sense. Like, I think they're going to try to be more of a controlling team than the just like balls to the wall, attacking, counter-attacking team that they've been for the last 2 years.
You think so? Because I was thinking the opposite, just because that midfield is so different than before. I was thinking that maybe they go the opposite route and continue to like just bypass them entirely.
It could. I guess they could. I mean, they could obviously, I set up tactically. However, I just think without those focal points up top, it makes it kind of tough to see exactly how they're gonna score in like that chaotic system, because they've relied so heavily on like prolific attacking players, and I'm just not necessarily seeing like who the focal point is aside from Brian Brown.
Or Devin Sandoval, I suppose. Yeah.
Or yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I'll play off of Sandoval. Maybe that's what the game plan is. Like,
it'll be like get the ball line to Moreno to Sandoval. Like, that's going to be every possession.
And it is worth mentioning that Amando Moreno is still there, so that he is a game changer for them for sure. But we'll obviously have more on New Mexico United in the coming days before the match. And yeah, we'll be talking plenty of New Mexico United as the season wears on. As we move on into the Copa Tejas trio, this is the second division of the Copa Tejas, though, not the first division. So
make me sick.
The OG,
Tejas, man.
The OG Copa Tejas.
I just have to put it out there. It's lost something for me now that we've got these divisions. Mm-hmm. Maybe others feel differently, and that's fine. But just had to put that out there anyway. Yeah,
we've been relegated in a competition. I mean, in fairness, we were in relegation form in season 1 of the Copa Tejas, but.
But think of the others, Phil. They deserve better.
They do. Austin Bold has been done so dirty like throughout their whole history. Just now people just act like they don't even exist. It's just, I feel bad for them. Like inaugural Copa Tejas winners and just no respect.
They won more trophies than Austin FC.
That's true. So
at least they didn't play, like, at least they didn't have, like, their home opener last week, because Austin FC won their home opener last week.
True.
So they would have gotten just absolutely overshadowed.
True. While we're talking Austin Bold, we may as well just dive into Austin Bold as a club. The thing I found kind of crazy about Austin Bold is they just decided to ditch everybody this year. Like, I can go down the list and every single like significant player for them is pretty much gone. Sean McFarlane, Billy Forbes, Restrepo retired, Kleber, Andre Lima, Guadarrama, Breck Evans went back to North Texas after his loan, Tomasi, Alan Rivera, Christian Ortiz, Chris Turpak, a Shithouse 11 mainstay, and Ishmael Ajome as well, which was interesting. All gone. Everybody out. The ins, they have a few notable ones for sure. I think most notably Jason Johnson from Louisville City, longtime USL forward who has a couple of trophies as well. And then Wayne Gordon from Oklahoma City. That one was kind of like an interesting one, but Sean Okoli from Orange County, pretty solid pickup up front. And then journeyman Stefano Pino joined from Saudi Arabian club Al Wasm. And then Colin Fernandez from San Antonio FC, who was formerly of the Chicago Fire. But a little bit of just a total rebuild here for Austin and a very different look for the club heading into season 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was coming because the squad was getting kind of old, like age-wise. I think they've brought down their average age with a lot of these signings, which is always a good thing. I mean, the biggest departure for me is Billy Forbes. I mean, leading goal scorer last season with 7. That's always going to be a concern when your leading goal scorer leaves. But I think they front loaded this side, with Okoli, Pino, Johnson, and the like. So I'm really interested to see if Jason Johnson can start bagging him again, because I feel like he hasn't really been as productive in the last season or two. Sean Okoli had great numbers last year for OC. So hopefully that translates. And then, like you said, Stefano Pino, I mean, what an interesting career this man has had. Started out in Fluminense's academy in Brazil, obviously a huge club. They play at the Maracanã, and then he went to Shenzhen Tianjin Leopard in the Chinese second division, and then of course Saudi Arabia, like you said. So, and then several NASL seasons where he was extremely prolific. So, I mean, he's scored pretty much everywhere that he's played. So maybe he's one that I think he's a little bit on the older side, but could maybe do bits for Austin. So.
And at first I was really concerned to see Ishmael Ajome as a free agent, because it was like, how has this man not been signed? He is signing for Portland Timbers. So that's why he's, anyways, makes sense. And good for him to move up. He was actually up there in Austin's scoring charts from left back. So
he previously played for Switchbacks. Yeah, I mean, he was that player that always stood out to me every time we played Switchbacks. So, really good pickup then for Portland Timbers, because I really liked him. One of my favorite players that isn't a Loco. So
yeah, if we didn't have 3 left backs already, then we
I'd be all over that.
Christian. I mean, this team, another one that this almost feels like a season where a lot of these teams are hitting the refresh button after their first 2 seasons, kind of probably driven by the USL contract structure where most people are signed to 2-year deals or less. But how much uncertainty does this bring? It almost feels these almost feel like MLS 2 sides in a way, where we're we don't know who's going to play. We don't really know what it's going to look like.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think though that this year, just because of the way that doing business in soccer has changed right now, just because of the pandemic and all of that, there are a lot more kind of known quantities, not so much together, obviously, because these certain combination of players have never been together, but we know a little bit about everyone, as opposed to kind of these names that you haven't heard before. So I think that it makes it a little bit easier to anticipate or plan around. And the other thing is that, we play each team 4 times. So there's plenty of time to gain some familiarity, even if the first match is kind of a coin toss. You probably find out quickly after that who the better team is on paper.
The next club we're looking at, RGV, and I think the big story here, like obviously we can talk about the individual players, but really the big story for RGV in terms of outs is their partnership with Houston Dynamo, and they are now a like independent USL club.
I mean, I personally think that's dope because they already have the facilities to, be fully their own club. I think they have one of the best stadiums in USL, a great fan base, a unique market. So I think it's great, to be honest.
And I absolutely loathe going there, like playing there.
Yeah,
absolutely
no, it feels
hate
like
it.
the pitch is fucking endless, and like you're tired by the 30th minute because the humidity is like 120%.
Richie Ryan gets into that humidity and literally sees red.
He tries to get a red card so he can take an early shower. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's dope that they are their own thing now. They won't get those loan bombs, so I guess there's, how that could be a good or a bad thing. Playing wise, though, they were one of the worst goal scoring sides in the league last season with only 17 goals. I think that was like fourth worst in the whole league, like Eastern Conference and Western taken into account. So, and just a cursory glance, I couldn't see who they brought in that would help alleviate that.
Right.
So, meanwhile, they lost big players like Luca Perpa, Robert Coronado, Yamo Kibato, and the like. So, yeah,
I think I'm of a similar mind where I think the biggest question mark around this team is goals. Literally the only player with any sort of USL like history that is listed as an attacker is Elvis Amo from Loudoun, who has 9 goals in 24 appearances, which is a decent return, but certainly not, necessarily going to lead the line. I think the question mark remains around RGV's ability to put the ball in the back of the net.
So I have a hot take in that I think RGV is going to be a dark horse this year. I think that I think they'll be kind of a lot like 2019 El Paso Locomotive in that, well, I guess 2022 now that I think about it, 2020 as well, in that I think that there are a lot of talented players individually. They brought in Rodrigo Lopez, Juan Kuzain, who is like 20, I think, or something, but talented. A really good keeper in Tyler Derrick. So I think they have a lot of talent and a head coach with a lot of good experience. They brought in Wilmer Cabrera too. So if he has the ability to kind of synergize all that talent, I think that there is a lot of potential for them to be really strong. Kind of how people saw switchbacks last year, I think.
That's interesting. They definitely have some really talented players. Juan Kuzain is an interesting one, having spent a lot of time. He was like at Sporting Kansas City and then SKC2 as a result. Malaysian citizenship, dual citizenship. So interesting there, but Carbondale, Illinois native. So shout out to Southern Illinois University. Go Salukis. But yeah, I think I do think there's some interesting pieces here. Maybe I'm not seeing like who's going to step up and be that like that person to to convert for them, because I do think they have some really interesting pieces. I think Carter Manley is another one at right back who he's talked about like year on year as being one of like the most underrated players in USL. So I think that's a really shrewd pickup for RGV. Also, I just don't know what it all looks like in practice. And no one's jumping out at me as being like, oh, okay, like he's the one that you want to have the ball in the box. But you know, obviously like anybody could emerge. And it'll be interesting to see what they do in their first year of independence.
Juan Carlos Azocar is an interesting one for me. He kind of jumped out. Venezuelan international, I think, and actually he scored a goal in Copa Libertadores for his old club, Deportivo La Guaira, I think is how it's pronounced. So, yeah, I mean, there's interesting pieces here, but like you said, it's not abundantly clear who's scoring all the goals. But that is an interesting take, though. Maybe not a hot one, just an interesting one, Christian.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just think people. I think that people tend to really overlook RGVFC, and you know, with reason. In fairness, you know, considering the past couple of years. So I think that they're an easy one to just to kind of write off very quickly, especially in a division like this one.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. I mean, there's been a lot of not just the Houston Dynamo separation, but also just in the front office, there's been a lot of change. Obviously, Ron Patel, this is his first year as president of RGVFC as an independent club. So he did a lot of great things at New Mexico United, as much as it pains me to say. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
The last, but certainly not least of the Copa Tejas clubs, San Antonio FC. A few interesting outs. A lot of the Argentine contingent has departed. Most notably, obviously, Lucho Solignac headed to Locomotive. I count him as an out because he didn't spend any of the USL season elsewhere. He really just spent like the off season in Chile. So
right. No, yeah, I think that counts. That counts.
But also big one, Christian Pirano, obviously the wunderkind, moving on to bigger and better things in Europe now. Shithouse 11 and Locomotive favorite Mitchell Tainer, scorer of one of the most wonderful own goals in El Paso Locomotive history. And then Gonzalo Dorenzo as well. The notable outs, lot of goals and a lot of attacking flair, I would say, like in those outs. So what San Antonio did in response is they went to MLS and got every single player that was available. Like they have, let's see, just at a glance, they got players from Seattle, Orlando, Portland, LA, New York Red Bulls, DC United, Vancouver Whitecaps, and a couple, like I think it was 2 total from Sounders. So, they went shopping with that MLS basket, and ended up with a couple of pretty intriguing signings here. I think who's jumping off the page at you guys, like when you're looking at San Antonio FC, especially with some of these ins from the MLS clubs?
Well, for me, it's Justin Dillon. Just because 12 goals and 2 assists in 25 games in that horrendous Tacoma Defiance side in 2019, that's insane. That's pretty impressive to me. So, Dillon's technically an MLS Cup champion. And I think if he can play that way in a bad side, it's sky's the limit as far as playing in a good side like San Antonio. So he's the one for me that I kind of keyed on, and I assume he'll be the Lucho replacement like for like. So
he was he was playing USL on World Class. or whatever, expert mode.
Because world class is actually harder than legendary.
Yeah, legendary, whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is really, it's interesting. Emil Cuello is another interesting one from LA Galaxy. Just because he comes like really highly rated. And he was making appearances for LA Galaxy proper. Like he wasn't just playing at the 2 side. So anyways, a couple of interesting pickups and obviously like they still have the likes of Gallegos, who had also come up through the academy. But they handed the number 9 shirt to Santiago Patino, who came in from Orlando City. So he's been handed the attacking reins for all intents and purposes. But just the one professional goal for him so far. So a lot of expectation on a kid who hasn't had a lot of chance to impress yet. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's hard to say like what I expect of San Antonio because I think that they I don't know. I feel like they've been underperforming a little bit like so we'll see. But Santiago Patino is the other one too that I wanted to mention that kind of jumped out from Orlando City. So it seems like the squad is balanced. I will say that.
Yeah, and I mean they're very well coached. They're very well run. So I think again, I think that they have as fair a shot as anyone. I think that when you have a good coach like Marcina, coming off of a very good year, I think that he'll be able to make a lot out of that. And what the player that kind of stood out to me personally was. And it's not a huge name or anything, but I think that Sam Gleadle, who played quite a bit with Reno and kind of knows the league and knows a lot of these teams, is also a little bit of an asset, especially after that brief stint of experience he got from the Minnesota United call-up too. So I think that that's a good thing to have in your back pocket.
Yeah, I think Cam Lindley's another one that like kind of sticks out for that reason, coming from Indy, because he's pretty young, just 23 years old, but he's got 42 appearances in USL for Indy. So quite a bit of experience in that central midfield and the back line. I think holding on to Cardoni was important as well. And I'm not saying holding on in that he's this amazing keeper that like couldn't possibly have been held on to, but I think he is a steady presence in that team and a leadership presence along with PC. I think those are a couple of people that, you know, they're definitely happy to carry some consistency. I think the one question mark is just with all of the business they did, and this goes for basically every team, not saying except Locomotive, because obviously we had our share of ins as well, but I would say most teams had a lot more business done this year than Locomotive, just proportionately. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly they all bring it together. Like Christian said earlier, a little bit longer off season, so maybe that levels the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say we've kept our spine intact for the most part, which is kind of incredible if you think about it at the level that we're playing at, where there's a lot of turnover for whatever reason. So, but yeah, sides like San Antonio and New Mexico, Austin Bold, of course, have definitely just like started fresh.
Yeah.
So,
well, speaking of starting fresh, Colorado Springs Switchbacks, they also, for basically the third season in a row, went out and changed everything. I don't know that there's a player left that from that game, that 4-2, that crazy game where they scored a couple. Uvaldo Luna, who scored those 2 goals, is on the outs. yeah, it's a long out list that includes George Labisi, Aiden Daniels, Christian Valesky, Kuramoto out as well, Joan Servos out as well. Servos went to the Segunda División B, and he's playing for AE Prat in Spain. But anyways, on the ins, couple of familiar names, lots of USL experience coming in. Jimmy Ockford from Louisville City, Gabe Robinson from Vegas, Matt Mahoney from Sacramento, Haji Berry joining from North Carolina FC. That was a big attacking pickup for Colorado Springs. Dylan Cerna coming over from Kansas City. Deshane Beckford, who technically was coming from Montego Bay, but obviously via like USL multiple times. But yeah, not again, like they kind of last season with the Labisi signing, they had this like big clout signing where South African Twitter went absolutely apeshit for Colorado Springs, and they had like tons of interaction. They don't really have a signing like that this season, and no one that's like with a lot of domestic business being done. It's a little bit more of the like changing pieces rather than making some like big like earth shattering signing.
Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest signing, I guess, is maybe Haji Berry. Like you said, a big attacking pickup from North Carolina, although he only had 1 goal and 1 assist last season. So
yeah,
his best goal scoring season was in 2018, 17 goals, 5 assists for Swope Park Rangers. So if he can find that form again, then by all means. But this is another side in the Mountain Division that lost their leading goal scorer in Christian Valesky. So that's the question for them, I think, as well. But we have to acknowledge the rebrand. New logo, new stadium, who dis? Like,
yeah, new stadium for Colorado Springs. They've been at it for a little while now, and they finally get that payoff. They were playing in like a soccer specific stadium, I guess, as it's called, but yeah, a little bit of and it looks nice. It looks real nice.
It does, and I really like the new like electric blue that they're using. It looks a little bit more modern, but by still keeping like a lot of the same design elements. So, I mean, they'll be hoping to, give the fans a really good first season at their downtown stadium. So we'll see, but it's always exciting when teams at this level can build on their infrastructure and stuff, because I think that's often one of the it's one of the sticking points in terms of like justifying promotion, relegation, and stuff. So
right,
you have sides in the lower divisions that could easily host a top division match one day, then that's awesome.
Well, and here we are, season 3, no stadium prospects in sight. So
mudded.
I will say about switchbacks, as far as big signings go, I guess it kind of depends on where your football allegiance is like, because Jose Francisco Torres is kind of a big deal as far as Mexican soccer goes. Okay. Over 250 appearances in Liga MX, Club World Cup experience. He's played with Tigres. So I think that he brings a lot to a locker room. I even think he's a U.S. National team member too from back in the day. So there's a lot of maybe not flashy signing, but definitely someone who brings a lot of experience and probably leadership too to that locker room. And I couldn't tell you for sure. Can't remember if he played in the preseason game against us. It was a little hard to distinguish anyone. I don't remember them having giant numbers on the back of their jerseys. But I will say that they looked like a team that was in need of some leadership, at least during that preseason match.
Sure.
They seem to be a little bit of a mess. So hopefully he can bring that for them, and like you said, kind of keep building them as a club.
Yeah, 26 caps for the U.S. for Francisco Torres. So yeah,
Damn,
that is
shame on us.
Yeah. No, that's a pretty good pickup. At 33, obviously a little bit. We'll see how much he's able to play. We'll see if he's got that Iron Man gene in him, like the likes of Richie and Yuma. But no, it's an interesting pickup for sure by Colorado Springs. And yeah, it'll just be nice for them to be in that new venue, and we'll see how that turns out for them. Real Monarchs, there's not much to say. Obviously, with MLS 2 sides are always tough to do like any sort of preseason about, because I mean their roster is going to change week to week. There's going to be a handful of players who stick around kind of all season and are just like consistently in there. But I think the one thing that we would be remiss if we didn't talk about is Real Monarchs alumnus, David Ochoa, continuing to make enemies everywhere he goes. For those who didn't see, he at the end of Real Monarchs' win against Minnesota United, he punted the ball into the Minnesota supporters section at the end of the game and started a little bit of a kerfuffle. This man doesn't know how to. He loves the mess.
Like at some point, like I don't know. He's still young, I know, but like at some point you've got to start like acting like a professional, right? Like it either has to stop or it catches up to you at some point.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't know what what kind of stuff goes into managing a team. Like what I'm curious about is how that kind of stuff looks to the national team. So when that time comes, when the senior squad starts calling, is that something that might hold him back? That kind of behavior.
That's, for me, that's where it's kind of difficult, because at club level, I despise him. But obviously, we watched our boys crash out of Olympic qualifying with Ochoa in net, and he made a huge gaffe as well in that match.
Right.
So I do, by default, support him when he plays for the United States sides. But yeah, he's just twatting it up in MLS as well. And what was it that Adrian Heath said? He said he's got some edge to him for a kid that's not that good.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Damn.
Adrian Heath is a seasoned veteran in the management positions in MLS. So yeah, to have a vet like him say that about you, that's gotta sting if you care at all. But I don't know if he does.
Well, some quick words on some of the non-divisional opponents, and this is just a smattering of teams that catch my eye when I see the schedule. One of the biggest ones is Indy 11, and this is interesting because it's the Dylan Mara's derby, in that he did formerly play for Indy 11. But this is kind of a unique opportunity because obviously, like, we're playing the Oklahoma clubs this year in, from the quote unquote Eastern Conference. They were in the West, for all, for most of their history, and, obviously for our existence. So that doesn't feel, like that much of a stretch. But getting a chance to play Indy in a regular season game it's a pretty cool opportunity, and they're coming to El Paso as well.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I have no idea what to expect. I will say I'm glad that they're coming to us because, I mean, maybe they moved, but were they not the ones that played where the Colts played, or was that someone else?
Yeah, they did play at Lucas Oil Stadium for a period of time. They've since moved back to the stadium they were playing in. That much more conducive to a enjoyable soccer viewing experience, I think.
Yeah, that's all I would say is I'm glad they're coming to us, because I've seen some of their clips from when they were at the Colts field, and it's hard to watch with all the NFL lines and stuff. But I mean, yeah, it's cool that they're coming to visit us. I hope Dylan shows out, to be honest.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, the
Mikka as well, right?
Yeah, Mikka as well. Yeah. No, it's a good call. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention him. They Indy made a few big signings just in terms of like players that have pedigree, I guess, primarily, but they've got Jordan Hamilton, who most recently was with Columbus Crew, but had played for a long time with Toronto. Lots of USL pedigree there as well with Toronto too, when they were in the championship and not in USL League One. So he comes with a goal scoring pedigree. And then they've signed Manuel Arteaga, who had 30 goals in the Venezuelan first tier. So yeah, I don't know. This guy could be like a monster. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he's gonna get up to. Now I think that's career. I don't think he didn't have 30 goals last season, but
Nicky Law is another interesting one. He joined from Exeter City, I think, and I guess he's joined as a player manager, which is cool. He's 33 years old, so I guess that kind of makes sense, but plenty of experience in the lower tiers of England and also in Scotland, so maybe we'll see him. I
guess they also grabbed AJ Cochran from Phoenix, which little bit of an interesting one. But yeah, it's always interesting with these teams too, because I mean they had a ton of outs. I guess most notably for their outs is Tyler Pasher, who is doing the business with Houston Dynamo at the moment. So, shout out to Tyler for demonstrating that USL to MLS pipeline, and that there are players at this level that can be really good in MLS as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been incredible. I think he was man of the match on Houston's opening day. Is that right? He was. I just know he's been insane.
Yeah, he tore it
bagged
up.
A brace that day, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, where's he? What's he? Yeah, he's playing really well so far. Not a ton. I guess they've only played 2 games, so
yeah.
Anyways,
but also I think they fill in that gap pretty well with between Arteaga and Jordan Hamilton.
Yeah.
I don't think that they'll miss many goals this year.
Yeah. Yeah, they're still gonna be a threat up top. I think the question for Indy is, can they, and this isn't so much a concern of Locomotives, but can Indy sustain a run throughout the season? Because they started last season as one of USL's best teams and ended it out of the playoffs. So,
ouch.
Yeah, that was a brutal last season. They just went on a terrible run there. But
they also sorry,
go for it.
I just thought Mikka would enjoy this if she didn't already know. But they also have quite the seasoned Spaniard on their team. Ayoze, I don't know how it's pronounced, but it looks like he spent a good amount of time with Tenerife.
Okay.
Nice. 100 if Wikipedia is to be believed, 162 games with them.
Interesting. Ayoze must be a Tenerife type name, because Ayoze Perez he's also from Tenerife.
I'm pretty sure that's him.
No way.
Yeah.
Perez is at Leicester.
Oh, well, this guy's name is also Ayoze Perez.
Oh, shit. There you go.
Imposter.
Jeez.
Would the real Ioze Perez please stand up? So a team that I'm really struggling to understand, like, what Las Vegas Lights are going to be this year. I know for all intents and purposes they're LAFC 2, but they have like 30 outs. No, wait, hold on. 28 departures and only 18 arrivals. So, like, the math isn't adding up like all that much at the moment for Las Vegas Lights. I know LAFC will fill out the rest of this roster, but it's just a weird situation. Maybe the biggest in for Las Vegas is that LAFC partnership.
That or Steve Cherundolo.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Fair. They only do U.S. men's national team legends because Winalda and then Cherundolo. So
I'm curious because I think it's a touchy subject for a lot of the fans too. I think I've seen a couple of angry tweets at the club like, when the hell are you gonna like show us a roster?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
anyone knows what they're gonna look like.
Yeah, they have some like known quantities signed up. I think most notably Quincy Amarikwa, who's an MLS veteran. He spent time with like the likes of Chicago Fire, San Jose Earthquakes. Crisostomo, who was most recently at Orange County. He's obviously like we know what he can do. Raul Mendiola who spent last season at San Diego Loyal. Like, there are some, even Noah Billingsley, who came from Minnesota United. Like, there are players here that are known, but there's also like a good amount of just complete, like, not misinformation by any stretch, but just like a lack of information from the club and like what this team is actually going to look like.
I wonder if this is so stupid, but I wonder if they'll be able to afford cash drops like post-pandemic.
They just start dropping
some of that PPP.
I was gonna say they're gonna be dropping vaccine vials or just pre-drawn.
That sounds dangerous.
Pre-drawn syringes. Just,
I mean, having a freaking helicopter over like thousands of people was also dangerous, Mikka. So
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I have no clue what to make of Las Vegas Lights, and if their fans don't even know what the hell is going on, then I sure don't.
Yeah, Vegas we'll see what kind of mess they bring. And speaking of messes, the team that was headed to MLS and now isn't, Sacramento Republic FC, they are another one where they had this whole like grand exit basically planned. And now, as we have found out, we understand like Sacramento is not going to MLS. So some of these moves, like kind of preparing for life on a different budget than maybe they were planning.
Yeah, it looks like it. I think looking at who all that they brought in, Tainter, it looks like.
He's back.
We're going to see him again no matter what. Still keep Iwasa. I mean, good for them. That's always a smart move to keep a guy like that on your roster. And then meme favorite Tucker Bone making his way from Reno to Sacramento.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like, I feel like there was a lot less movement than there would have been. Obviously, like if they were preparing to go to MLS, there would have been, I think, the roster may have looked a lot different. As it stands, it seems like they kind of just like tried to fill out what they had, and kind of steady things like as much as they could, because compared to a lot of the other USL teams, they actually didn't have that much turnover compared to like some of these teams who had 30 changes.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they still have a lot of like good pieces. I mean, Cameron Iwasa, Luis Philippe, Tucker Bone, like Christian was saying. So I don't know. I wonder if there's any like mental or psychological blow to the team because of the MLS fiasco and their lead investor pulling out. But do we think it's an eventuality though, or is this it? Like they're not going to join MLS?
It seems like it's pretty like done. I don't know, Christian, you get a different sense.
They're still trying to get the stadium.
Yeah, so. I think didn't they already like start on that? Like
I thought they
have
did.
Land and everything. Like I think that they were like well into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would assume that if you've already made that investment that you're still interested. Like I don't know how it works as far as if MLS is still looking at them, but I think that they're still looking upwards.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, that's just one of the pitfalls of a league where you have to pay to join. If you can't pay, you can't join. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want you guys to enjoy this moment because this is the last episode where you won't have to provide a match prediction, an outcome prediction.
True that.
This is true.
So just breathe that in, that sweet freedom of not being held to the garbage predictions that we will ultimately make throughout the season.
Unless you're Austin.
Yeah, Ostradamus. He promises to be back with another big one this season, but the league, the way it's shaping up, I don't know. I do. Having talked about everyone and having looked through the rosters, there are obviously some really good signings out there that teams have made, and some teams have certainly changed for the better. But I do like Locomotive's makeup in this division with the amount of stability that they were able to have, as we mentioned. It just feels like we're kind of coming into this maybe a step ahead of some of these teams who hit the reset button over the offseason.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, having gone through all of these teams now and having the chance now to reflect on Locomotive, I still feel like we are, I mean, of course it's always going to be biased, but I really feel like we've done some of the best business in the league as far as getting pieces that we actually needed and then retaining, like I said, our spine. So, yeah, I'm really encouraged by what Mark has been able to do in this offseason, and we'll see. Third time's a charm, like I said, so going for the trophy.
Christian, how are you liking Locomotive's chances given what we've talked about now?
I think, just I can't say the same for the first year because we didn't really know, but just like last year, I think that we have a really good chance. We're definitely going to put ourselves in a position, to bring a trophy. And then, like we all say, when it comes to playoffs, it is kind of a crapshoot. But
for sure,
I think we have a chance to really put ourselves in a good position as far as making it there, securing, as many home games as possible. All that. I think that we can set ourselves up really well to have a really good year. I think, again, if everyone stays healthy, and even if a couple people don't, I think we have that depth that we thought we had last year before the restart.
Yeah.
So I think that all the pieces are there. It's just a matter of executing and, just getting a little bit of luck sprinkled in there.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think they're just well poised and in a really good position with the amount of players that we've been able to keep over. It's just it's a good situation to be in, especially in a tough season where a lot of these transactions have obviously been. I think in previous years we probably would have looked abroad, and we were still able to find some really solid pieces within USL, which we know is not Mark's MO he wants to find those unique pieces elsewhere, but we've got I think right now the biggest difference for Locomotive is they did go out, they refreshed that front line, but kept that spine, as you said, Mikka. So yeah, just really excited about what they can offer, and certainly I think we've got a good shot at taking the division once again. And then obviously, as you said, Christian, the playoffs are a total crapshoot. And I'm sure, if all goes to plan, we would probably have to go through Phoenix again. So, it's just it's just the way it is.
Triggered.
Yeah. Well, cool. Have we missed anything? Is there anything floating out there? Any narratives that we're not catching here?
We, as far as talking about the other teams, yes, but I think that we have not mentioned our two signings in the goalkeeper department.
Very true, and we should not leave them out. The club did announce a double signing as well. The signings of Javier Becker and Marco Canales.
No relation.
Yeah. Javier obviously has been with the club since the start, and had been on the roster as basically like a non-contract player. He was an emergency keeper. He was at every game, he was there and training with the team every day. But he gets the reward in the sense that for his hard work. Now he is, like, for all intents and purposes, the first backup to Logan.
Yeah, and I mean, good for him. And I think that's probably something that Mark has been wanting to do for a really long time, because we know the kind of relationship that Mark has with these players, especially the younger ones. Because he's told us before that his favorite part of coaching is kind of like that teaching part, and I think that that's something that you really get to do a lot of with a younger player, especially one who is there because he wants to be. Clearly he wasn't there for a paycheck. He's there because he's hungry to play, and so I think that's kind of, I think that is something that Mark just eats up.
Yeah, I think.
Also, shout out our would-be foes in the U.S. Open Cup, Detroit City FC, for winning the Legends Cup.
True.
The Legends Cup. Just
True.
A quick shout out to them.
Yeah, and a dominant performance as well against Chattanooga, with a couple of really good goals as well. Kevin Venegas with the dagger deep into stoppage time from the free kick. Fun one to watch, and it's always odd seeing like lower league professional soccer on beIN Sports.
Nasser Khalifi's gonna save the sport.
Man of the people.
He's into grassroots soccer in the United States.
I love two things: PSG and Nisa.
Well, I mean, the way PSG set their wall up for the second one today looked a lot like what Chattanooga did.
Yikes.
On that free kick. So,
Oh no!
I'm sorry. That's
funny. That's funny. Oh man. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this one. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. You can follow Seriously Loco on all the social media platforms at Seriously Loco, and you can subscribe to the podcast on all the major podcast platforms. It's literally on every one. Just search Seriously Loco Soccer Pod and you'll find us. Subscribe, rate, review, the whole nine, and we are just a few measly days away from the start of the season. I think we can all feel it. We're all getting excited about it. And we'll likely be back. We'll likely be back with another episode to preview the home opener against New Mexico United. And then obviously from there, it's full tilt as far as Seriously Loco goes, in bringing you guys all of the Locomotive content throughout the season. So, hopefully you'll stick with us. And until next time, stay loco.